it's working. I don't know, maybe. Hi everybody. I am trying to figure this out because it's given me trouble again. Can anybody see this live? Let's see if this is working. If it is, I will say this. I am not going to be able to see comments using my cell phone. So, I guess we'll just get to it.
You're not on.
I'm not on?
No.
It says I'm live. One viewer. Catherine reacted. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can... Something went wrong. We're having trouble playing this video. Okay. I think that they're just being a little bit more careful, I guess, about who's live and how they're live and everything. If you can hear me, it does say that there is one viewer on my phone. If you can hear me, I have scheduled the live to go at 6:18 on my computer, which is a far better. Oh, hey Jen, how are you? Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm having a little bit, you can hear me. Awesome, thank you. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties because apparently, they keep changing things every single week, right? So I just did this last week, had no technical difficulties. Everything was hunky-dory. This week, challenges. So I'm on my phone right now, which means that it might be a little bit more challenging to hear everybody. Hey, Catherine, how are you? Good to see you. Yay. Okay, so I can see comments. They're kind of floating up as I'm talking. Fabulous, wonderful. That's Bagheera. She likes to be in the spotlight. Okay, so let's talk toes. Yay, so exciting. So in toe reading, my favorite thing about toe reading is that so if you think about it this way, toe reading is this idea that our thoughts, feelings, and emotions show up in the shape, direction, color, etc., of our toes. And hi, honey, how are you? Thank you for watching. So with toe reading, we can tell where our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are coming from. And it has a tendency to show up the subconscious thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So we know what we're thinking consciously, or we hope we do anyway. It's those subconscious thoughts that get stuck in our bodies and that we suppress. We may affirm over here, but then we actually believe something over here, and the two have a tendency to have really hard time meeting in the middle. And toe reading for me, it's so exciting because it's one of the things that you can tell the physical, it shows up physically in your body, and you can see it, and you can smell it, taste it, touch it kind of thing, in order to be able to make sure that your conscious thoughts are in conjunction with your subconscious thoughts, so that when the two align, I think that everybody has experienced this wonderful magic feeling of things coming to fruition immediately. And I keep shaking my head because the hair it keeps getting in my face. But anyway, so when the subconscious thoughts and subconscious thoughts meet, magic happens, and things happen that you want to have happen right away, and there's no delay, and it's super, super exciting. So I love toe reading because it's right there in front of you where your subconscious thoughts are. I'm pretty familiar with my conscious thoughts, not as familiar with my subconscious thoughts. So I like to check in with my toes to make sure that they're in alignment with each other, the subconscious thoughts and the conscious thoughts. So we'll talk about a little bit about what that looks like. And of course, my toe reading map is MIA. So I am going to use my mentor's toe reading map and that is Casey Miller. Casey Miller is the toe reading guru that I learned from Casey Miller with the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. She's absolutely amazing. And this is her chart that I initially learned toe reading on. So it's going to be backwards, of course, because of the way that Facebook works, because of the way the lives work. But if you look at the elements, there's ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And on the map that I created, it would be easier to show you that ether, which is the big toe, is all about the big picture in our lives or our destiny. The air toe is our second toe, and if you think about what it is on the hand, it's kind of our pointer toe, so it's kind of how we communicate with the world. Or if you're me or Italian, you always use your hands when you communicate. You use all your fingers. But for the purposes of this, hi Carol, thank you for joining us. We're talking toe reading here. So on the second toe, we're talking the air toe, which is all about communication. On the third toe, if you think about where that shows up in your fingers, what's that third finger? It is all about the fire toe and temperament, or how we take action in our lives. The fourth toe is the water toe. That's how we go with the flow, or maybe we don't go with the flow. That's the water toe. The water toe is the relationship toe. So how we go with the flow or don't go with the flow. And then on the left foot, we're talking about faith and trust. On the right foot, we're talking, oh, that's faith and trust. On the right foot, we're talking about, sorry, getting caught on my words. On the left foot, it's faith and trust. On the right foot, it is all about prosperity and abundance. So if you're interested, I think everybody's a little concerned about prosperity and abundance these days. I keep seeing things pop up in my feeds around that subject. If you're interested in where your subconscious thoughts are on the subject versus where your conscious thoughts are, and to make sure that the both are coming together properly, or not properly, that's the wrong word, but harmoniously, that they're in alignment with each other. You know your conscious thoughts fairly well, most of us. And then if you look at your right baby toe, you can see where your subconscious thoughts are holding up. So I think it's really, really, really cool. Let me grab, one more thing I want to talk about when it comes to just the basic education of toe reading. And that is the past, present, and future kind of, you can see the way that shows up. Hi, Tom. So glad you joined us tonight. We're talking toe reading here. So on this chart, you can kind of see how the feet show up in our body hologram. So if we're talking about, and I use my hands just because it's easier than holding up a book the whole time. If this is my left foot, I don't know. Anyway, whatever foot it is, the big toe is the thumb. The second toe is the pointer. The third toe is the middle finger. The fourth toe is the relationship one, and the baby toe is the only one that's different from side to side, and that is prosperity and abundance, faith and trust. So on that hologram, you saw that that right along there is where the spine lies. So I know that a lot of people are sitting a lot more than normal because we're all kind of stuck at home right now, or several of us are, and we're not getting up and moving maybe as much as we could. One of the ways that we can help ourselves with that is by literally massaging right along the line of the thumb, because that's where our spine is housed in our feet and our hands as well. But anyway, so I think that's kind of a neat thing too. So you can just, you can, as you massage up that, you will see that you have some tender spots. And as you reach those tender spots, if you kind of work them, it will, believe it or not, it will loosen your back too. And how that works is if you think about that drawing of the nervous system, how the nervous system kind of spreads out and gets to the points on the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes. So it, you know, when you work that tip point of where the nerve ending resides, or where it can kind of get clumped up and loosen that, it also loosens the places in your body that it's stuck, that energy is stuck. So let's talk a little bit about toe reading. I don't have examples that anybody sent to me this week, so we'll talk about one of the toes that's on my vision board this year. If you can see those toes, you can see where this is a right foot. It is, you can kind of see how this communication toe is on top of the big picture toe. So it would be my imagination that this person has a lot of analytical thoughts and behaviors, and may have it all worked out on their logic brain. But when it comes to the allowing the creativity to flow that logic brain into a big picture scenario. So like, for example, if you're thinking about something that you really want to do, that you want to create this, I don't know, let's just call it a university. I see a lot of people opening up their own universities right now, which is really cool. But so let's say you want to open up your own university right now, and you have that big picture imagination of what that looks like in your life. If you had toes like this person right here, and I hope everybody can see that, you would never ever be able to get that big picture off the ground unless you communicated it with somebody, unless you started talking it out, started verbalizing that map of what that big picture looks like. So when that second toe kind of sits on top of the big picture toe, there's a couple of things that it could mean, but to me, in general, it means that you're not communicating what that big picture is, and therefore there's no way that it can come to fruition. So kind of like, you know, I see a lot of people who get really afraid to communicate their big picture ideas because they're afraid somebody's going to steal it. They're afraid that somebody's going to take that ball and run with it. They're afraid that, you know, they might lose the opportunity to make money on their big idea. But what I tell people when it comes to that scenario is, well, there's so many different ways to look at it. But when you look at it from that glass half full perspective of that idea is in you for a reason, and you came up with it for a reason. And if you're a God-fearing person, if you just believe in source, it doesn't even matter. It's you were divinely given this big picture idea for a reason. Now, whether it's for you to earn money on or not, that's kind of up to society and kind of up to how you present it and whether you're ready and timing and blah, 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 blah. You could get into any number of reasons to stop your communication on that. But the reality is that once you start communicating it to the world around you, it's amazing how people want to support you in it. If it's meant for you to build, people will support you in building it, right? So it's this idea that rather than stifle your big picture concept, rather than stifle that message or holding it to yourself, go ahead and let it out into the world so that somebody can take the ball and run with it. The reality is you're only there to communicate what that big picture stuff, what those great ideas are. We're amazing idea creators, right? So we're here to create the idea, or we're here to voice the opinion about those ideas. And then if it's meant for you to earn money at, you will find that all kinds of people support you in earning money in that idea. If it's not meant for you, somebody else takes the ball and run with it. And that's fantastic too, because when we're keeping those ideas to ourselves, we are, you know, stopping the world from growing. We're stopping the world from becoming a better place because we have these. Anyway, so I think you guys get what I'm trying to say. Let me see if I have any comments on here. I think that there's a few people commenting. Anyway, okay. So are there any questions about toes that anybody has that they would like for me to answer? Or if there's something that you've always wondered about toes, or if there's something that you've thought might be an idea that's worth looking into as far as the toes are concerned. You know, a lot of people don't like talking about the toes. They're kind of a little weirded out by the toes. I like weird. The weirder it is, the better for me. Whenever I come across somebody who's ultra religious, I often refer to the concept that, you know, isn't it taught that we're supposed to be like Jesus, right? Here's a fantastic image, obviously done by an artist in the 14th century, and it's of Jesus bathing people's toes. He's anointing their toes. Well, there's nothing more religious than that, and how it is very humbling to sit at somebody's feet and be in service to them. It's very, very humbling. But it's an amazing experience because it allows you to kind of be the conduit to their angelic guides, if you will. Another thing over here is how the chakras line up with the way that the foot shows up. So for example, I'll go back to that back problem challenge that I talked about earlier. One of the things is when you're talking about anything that shows up along this line, which is where the back shows up. If you're, you know, depending on where it shows up, like, so if you have, let's say you have a stiff neck, okay? One of the ways that you can help get that stiff neck loosened up and or allow yourself the opportunity to speak your mind, which is usually what a stiff neck means. It means that you're biting your tongue a little too often. You might consider rubbing your foot or kind of massaging it right along the lines of where the big toe lies. Isn't that neat? And it always works for me. Every single time it works for me. Catherine asked, what does it mean when you have a hammer toe? Okay, so hammer toes can mean a lot of different things. You know, a lot of people blame shoes when they were younger. A lot of people blame that they just, I don't know. The shoes thing is the number one thing that I have heard is that, oh, my parents just didn't buy me big enough shoes as I was growing up, right? The truth of the matter is that a hammer toe means that you were, if you take the name of the ailment and you translate it in a literal fashion, that's how metaphysicians deal with it. And a hammer toe is about being hammered down. So depending on which toe it shows up on, it would be my imagination that that person has been stifled or held back, or you know, any number of things that kind of were hammered down. That's the best way to say it, in that realm. So let me show you the toe map again so that you can see if that makes sense to you. Okay, so if we're talking ether, we're talking the big picture. If we're talking air, we're talking communication. If we're talking fire, we're talking action or temperament. If we're talking water, we're talking relationships. If we're talking the earth toe, we're talking about either faith and trust or prosperity and abundance. Does that make sense? You say all 4 toes except the big toe. Okay, so what I would suggest to you, Catherine, is that you probably need to be doing a little bit more self-care. And in your self-care, you will find that you learn to stand on your own 2 feet without worrying about what other people think. Does that make sense? So you probably worry too much what other people think. You probably are concerned with other people's opinions. And so that keeps you from speaking your truth. It keeps you from taking action. It keeps you from living, pursuing relationships. It keeps you from having any faith and trust or prosperity and abundance. If you're, I kind of think of it as, if you have a hammer toe, you're kind of holding back. Does that make sense? Okay, so there's that. I'm gonna go back and see. I think I saw that Carol made a comment here. Having major back and sciatica pain lately. Any recommendations? Absolutely. And totally normal that you would be having that, especially with the amount of sitting, at least that I've been doing. My back has been not happy with this quarantine challenge that we've been dealing with. Okay, so let's talk about that. Sciatica has a tendency to be down here, okay? And it can start in the middle or the lower back, and it can go all the way down into the pelvic region, right? So if we look at that on this map, okay, see that? We're talking about the lumbar, kind of this area, right? The sacral area. So my question for you is, where in your life are you keeping yourself from following your dream? Really, is it money that you think is stopping you? Is it your relationship that you think is stopping you? It's probably a combination of several different things, and obviously this is not something that you answer live here, but when we're talking about anything sacral, it is a matter of being sacred to us. Does that make sense? So when I think, toe reading, I went to Catholic schools my whole life. It was, now granted, I got to choose going to Catholic schools, so it's not like my parents were forcing that on me, which is, gosh, such a blessing. But in those communities, and in any kind of overly zealous religious communities, there has a tendency to be, believe my way or you're going to hell, right? So in your community that you're surrounding yourself with, I just wonder who's scaring you from speaking your truth, who's scaring you from pursuing your vision of what you desperately want to achieve in life, right? So when you talk about how to fix that physically right here, right now, it is going to be on the lower part of your foot. So kind of, here, let me use this as a better example. So where it shows up here is down here. So on your foot, if you massage your foot from about where it starts to curve in, really, all the way down to the heel, and you start to massage this area and kind of do some trigger point therapy with yourself, as far as, giving yourself some solid massage right along where your spine shows up, you'll find that it will loosen up a little bit, which is, I think it will really help you. In addition to doing the physical care, also do a little bit of journaling, or I don't know if you guys do vision boards, but one of the best things in the whole wide world for me, because I'm such a visual learner, is to get the visuals on something that I can look at all the time. So in in my pursuit of what I want to accomplish in life, which is huge, huge, huge things. And I can't wrap my head around what that looks like or how to do it or any of those things. But to get those images on a board really, really, really helps me feel like I have a little bit more control over this brain. Okay, so remember when I said that people that have hammer toes have a tendency to blame shoes? Blaming car accidents. Now, I'm not discounting the car accidents, you know, additional impact on the challenges. Of course it's gonna, you know, same with shoes. Of course they're gonna impact those challenges. With shoes, you're choosing to wear them. So somewhere in your subconscious, you're allowing yourself to wear shoes that, you know, or your parents did, if you know, whatever. Anyway, there's the shoe challenge. So somewhere in your subconscious, you're allowing that pain to take hold of you and you're keeping them on, so it's affecting you. When it comes to car accidents, and I've been in my fair share of car accidents as well, so I totally understand where the car accident challenge comes into it. And thank you for asking the question. I don't discount that a car accident adds to the physical trauma. However, physical trauma can always be overcome emotionally and spiritually. And people that have been told that they'll never walk and they need this surgery and they can't do this and blah, 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 have. So that's when you really you have to dig deep when it comes to that kind of stuff to do that mind over matter thing, where if you really, really sit still with your thoughts and you really, really delve into what was happening in your life at the time of those car accidents, what, you know, and again, I go back to that sacral chakra, if you will, is the power center of your life. And so when you're talking about a sacrum injury, you're talking about your power being just crushed, and literally in a car accident, it would be crushed, right? So I just wonder where in that, what was going on in your life at that time. And I would definitely look into how that shows up in your world today. So where does it show up in your world today? And how can you adjust what's going on in your world today to avoid focusing on it and avoid blaming the car accident and avoid focusing really on that negative thing that happened once upon a time, right? Even if it was just yesterday, that's still in the past. At some point, we got to leave that past in the past, right? Hi, Dogma. Oh, so good to see you. Okay. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Janice. Awesome. So glad you girls are here. And guys, Tom, I'm not forgetting you're here. Okay, so we're talking toe reading. We've done a little bit of education around the toe reading. And I just, you know, I wonder if anybody has maybe one or two more questions that we can answer before we end this little session for today. If not, I'm going to show you one more set of toes. Are we good? Okay, thank you. Good, Carol. I'm glad. Okay, so let's take a look at these toes. They're beautiful, right? I mean, this girl takes good care of herself. She is all about making sure that her feet are pretty. She's polished. She's definitely taking good care of herself, right? See that? Okay, so what I want to point out is, first of all of her toes are kind of at the same length, right? You know, no one toe is bigger or longer than the other. Her baby toe is nice and is right up there with all these other toes. It's not like way back down here like it is for some people. Anyway, so I would definitely call this set of toes or type of toes. Thank you, Carol. Hi, Jennifer. You, the anxiety. Yes. I will talk to you about anxiety in just a minute. But so these toes where they're nice and even, they're kind of all about the same length, about the same height, width, whatever. They are a little bit wider than most toes. I would call these queen toes. And the reason why they're queen toes is because they kind of come across as stable. They come across as, you know, somebody that you can maybe count on or rely on. It's kind of cool. But what's really interesting to me is that this toe right here, this little toe right here, which is her left foot, and you guys probably can't see this, but her communication toe on her left foot is up in the air. It's off the ground. It's kind of like hovering over all the other toes. So one of the things that I would ask her is how does she feel about how things are happening here on earth versus how they're happening in her imagination, or that focus is really, really up kind of toward heaven or God or spiritual realm. And does that have an impact on how she's showing up in the world, basically? Because when toes kind of hover, depending on which one it is how it affects all the other things. But depending on where it shows up is that's the challenge. So if it shows up on your relationship toe, maybe you're kind of not paying attention to what's going on here on earth. You're a little bit more in your head, if you will, about how your relationships are going in your life. Okay, so Jennifer, let's talk about anxiety a little bit. So one of the things that I highly recommend for any anxiety challenges is, it's kind of like, think back when your kids were toddlers, and they were trying to get into things that were going to be either dangerous for them or scary for you, or, whatever. You distracted them. Hey, don't go over there. Okay, let's not say don't go over there. Let's focus over here, right? So we're not going to go to the pool right now. We're going to focus on doing a puzzle right now. For anxiety, especially being cooped up in our houses and, lacking that social contact and lacking that outside world and being so drawn to all of the little minute things that are going on in your house and so overwhelmed by it, really. Distraction techniques are fantastic for that. When it comes to the toes, where that will show up is it will show up, let's see, which picture can I reference? Good golly. There it is. Okay. So on the toes where worry and anxiety will show up is either in that little kind of on any kind of callousing will show up on the toes because you're trying to protect yourself from something, or you're talking about if there's that like bump on the outside of the bridge of the foot, or if you have an excess amount of bump here, so that bunion area. Both of those show that that person feels they have too much responsibility. So when it shows up on the inside of the foot, or what I call the inside of the foot, so if it shows up on this side of either of the feet or toes specifically, that's interior or past thoughts, feelings, and emotions, if that makes sense. So like if your toe is, let's say the communication toe is leaning, and when I say leaning, I'm talking about where the nail bed is. If it's on this foot and it's leaning toward the inside, or, the big toe essentially, then he's worried about the past. If it's leaning to the outside or leaning out here, he's worried about the future, okay? So one of the best things as mom that you can do right now is have the conversation, have the scary conversation, have the conversation that gets it out of his head, and maybe do some of these vision board things. You don't have to do really, really big ones. You can do a card size one every single day. Yeah, I have one. Here's the Toe Reading book by Casey Miller. But that's kind of the perfect size for a card. And what I've done, in fact, I'll get them out if you guys don't mind waiting just a second, is something called soul collage cards. They are these kind of vision board cards, but they're they're about half of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. That's the size of them. So you have a theme in mind when you create them. So for kids, let's say one day you choose an animal theme. Let's say the next day you choose school theme. You just look through magazines and look for pictures. The idea behind soul collage specifically is that you don't want to use text. You only want to use images. And the reason for that is because when you use the cards after they're done, you look at the card and you say, I am, and then you say the word of what it is that you see. So hold that thought for just a second, and I'm going to grab my soul collage cards so that I can show you an example of what that looks like. And it's funny, this is when I get frustrated with my intuition, because before I got on live tonight, I said to myself, I really need to get my soul collage cards out. I just have a feeling we're going to be talking about them. But I didn't, and so here I am having to, go find them in the middle of the talk. Anyway, so in this soul collage card, the theme was our, gosh, I don't know why it's escaping me. It was our yellow chakra. I think it's our the chakras are escaping me right now. Anyway, it's the yellow chakra. So we were dealing with yellow chakra. So almost everything in here is yellow, if you can see. And when I use it it's kind of a meditation. It's also a little bit about getting to those subconscious thoughts and using the cards to help you do that. I look at this and I say, I am a busy bee. I am a flower. I am a pot of honey. I am tea. That kind of thing. And I'm doing it very literal right now. But it's really interesting to see where your brain goes with that as you allow it to just happen. And what ends up happening is you end up coming up with a word or a subconscious thought or belief that is like, oh, I didn't even know I thought that. I didn't even know that I felt that way. I didn't even know. So you could do one. My death card is my favorite card. This is my death card. So super cool. So if he's worried about getting sick, have him do a sick card. What does sick look like to him? And it will help you, because you'll obviously have your own interpretation of what his images mean to him, because you know him so well. But it will help him get it out of his head and onto paper, which is, half the battle for fears. When we hold on to those fears and we hold them really tight to us, they grow, they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and our imagination is so amazing, it runs with it, right? So we're afraid of that monster in the closet. Well, that monster in the closet gets bigger and bigger and bigger the more that you imagine the monster in the closet, right? It's not about there being a monster in the closet, it's about your imagination running with it. So when we're talking about anxiety, and this is coaching, this has nothing to do with toe reading, you're talking about allowing yourself to embrace whatever it is that you're afraid of, right? But so, like I said, where that shows up on your toes is in it shows up in a couple of different ways, but the two main ways that I see in kids is when they have a little bit of extra padding kind of right around there, or a little bit of extra padding right around there, or it shows up as a callus, and that callus can be anywhere on their feet, but where it is, it will help you so much in determining what it is that he's trying to protect himself from. So for your son in this particular case, does that make sense? So, yeah, so this was super fun. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining me. I'm gonna do this every single Tuesday, hopefully right at 6 o'clock on the dot. I won't have these continued Facebook Live challenges. I love that I know now that I can see the scrolling of the text, because that's what I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to see that. That's why I wasn't doing it. But if you send me a picture in advance, or you send me questions in advance, I would be more than happy to answer them whether you're here or not, and then you can access them on the live recording later. Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you again next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or Pacific Daylight Time, I think it's called now. Bye, guys. Talk to you later.